Silas, back with book number 14 for the year, The 12-Week Year by Brian P. Moran and Michael Lennington. Essentially, this book encourages people to go away from having a full year to complete your goal and to chop that down into 12-week periods. So instead of having a goal that you set out to accomplish starting in January and giving yourself the entire year until December, the book suggests that goals are more likely to be accomplished when we streamline them and we give ourselves a shorter period of time. And oftentimes, because we've been raised in this society within the 12-month cycle, we end up being incarcerated by that concept of 12 months. And if I write down a goal in January, maybe I don't get around to starting it until November. And then at the end of the year, the last 5 or 6 weeks, I'm trying to rush to make it happen. And it just doesn't often go our way. And so this book is really about streamlining the things we want to do and realizing that a lot of the lead up, a lot of the getting ourselves worked up to get started, it really causes us to waste time. So there are a couple of things I want to point out from the book. I always take notes, and I want to make sure that I share some of the things that I thought were important. In chapter 1, it talks about the fact that what you implement counts more than what you know or who you know. And I think because we give ourselves so much time to accomplish goals that we never end up doing the things we need to do. We don't often implement the things we need to implement, and we focus a lot on what we know and who we know, and we don't focus enough on implementation, and the implementation is really what counts. Another quote in chapter 2, which is called Redefining the Year, it says that annualized thinking is the misconception that there is plenty time in a year to get things done and make things happen. So again, we overestimate how much time we have, and we end up looking back toward the end of the year. Like, I'm recording this in October, and I would guarantee if any of you set January goals for the entire year, you can probably look back and there's at least one that you never got started on. And so we have this annualized thinking that I think incarcerates us, and it prevents us from really accomplishing as many goals as we should accomplish, and as many goals as we would like to accomplish. There are a couple of bullet points that he states in chapter 4. Chapter 4 is called Throwing Out the Annual Plan. And he says that 12-week planning is not quarterly planning, right? It's actually allowing each 12-week period to stand alone. The next thing he says about 12-week planning is that it's more predictable because of the short window. Again, your goal may be to lose 20 pounds. And maybe you wait until September to get started on that. And you realize that maybe you don't have enough time at that point. And you find yourself in a situation where, man, I wasted the first 9 months not getting started on this goal. So he talks about that shorter window allowing you to have a different look at it, and it allows it to be more predictable. He also says that 12-week planning is more focused due to less objectives, and it allows for more execution and fewer objectives. And so, again, we're talking about really getting down to the meat and potatoes of what has to be done in order for your goal to be accomplished. If we give ourselves an entire year, we'll lay out so many sub-points between where we are and the goal that those sub-points and objectives might actually get in the way. So his suggestion is that we actually strip ourselves of so many objectives and streamline it based on the 12-week planning. They also in the book give formats and templates on how to get this done, which I think is a really good piece as a resource in the book as well. He says that the 12-week planning has more structure, and also that the planning on a 12-week basis should help you identify and implement the critical yet few actions that you need to take to reach your goal. A lot of times we go around the bend doing a bunch of things when there's probably a small list of things we have to do. but we don't want to do those things because they're more difficult. But the more fast that we operate and the more rapid pace at which we operate, the more momentum we have and we're able to knock things out. 12 weeks is approximately a quarter of the year. The book also talks about the 13th week being a planning week and a reflection week. So, for the 12 weeks, you're actually implementing the goal setting and goal execution process. Then at the end of that, there's week 13. So you've got 4 of those in a year. And if you look at the year from a 12-week perspective, you can get 4 times as many things done in that particular year. I thought the book was really good for the sake that it gives you some templates on how to set up the 12 weeks. So it doesn't just tell you to cut down the time. It also teaches you how to be efficient with the reduced time that you have. The biggest quote that I got from the book is on page 131. And I'm going to highlight that page because I think for me, it was the most important. And I want you guys to highlight that if you do decide to pick the book up. It says, to become great, you must choose to allocate your time to your greatest opportunities. I thought that was really powerful because that is stated differently than saying spend your time doing great things. It's different than someone asking you, what are you doing with your time? If someone asks you, what are you doing with your time? Sometimes we get defensive when we hear people ask us that question. Or if we think we know what we're doing with that time and it's positive, then we share it. But just because you're doing something positive doesn't mean it is affording you the opportunity for the greatest thing in front of you. And I think that quote, to become great, you must choose to allocate your time to your greatest opportunities. It's very specific. It makes me think, at the least, when I'm involved in an activity today, is this allowing me to have the greatest opportunity for me right at this moment? Something as simple as, do I clean up my house or do I go out and hang out, right? If I've got a family, if I'm, submitting myself to my family, then cleaning the house first before I go hang out gives me the greatest opportunity that's right in front of me, right? My responsibility as a father and a husband. That's a very simple and basic personal example, but I think the question of, am I allocating my time to my greatest opportunities, is a way in which I can streamline my activities to be as productive as I need to be. And since I read this book a couple of weeks ago, this has really been on my mind, right? In order to be great, you must allocate your time to your greatest opportunities. It is not suggesting that you do the greatest thing out in the world, but really the greatest thing that's within your reach. So let's say you're unemployed and you don't have a job and someone else is taking care of you financially, right? Maybe the greatest opportunity for you is to be of assistance to that person who's taking care of you. Maybe it's cleaning off the snow of their car when it's snowing. Maybe it's cranking up their car early when they go to work when it's cold outside. Maybe it's washing the dishes before they get home, right? The greatest opportunity in front of you is right in front of you. And in order for you to be great, you've got to identify the greatest things in front of you, accomplish those things, and then that gets you to the next step of the next greatest thing in front of you. And that's how people who end up being wildly great and wildly successful become successful, because they look at the thing in front of them as the greatest thing they can do in that moment. And I think streamlining our time and looking at what's right in front of us, what's right in front of our reach, is a really key takeaway for me from this book, The 12-Week Year. So I recommend it for people who are planners, people who are perfectionists. It really breaks down how important it is to streamline and reduce the amount of objectives to be able to get things done. Sometimes those of us who find ourselves in planning mode or perfectionist mode, we never get it done because we want it to be done perfect and we want it to go specifically to a T with this large, robust plan. And so we've got to get out of that quickly so that we can get some things done. So if you're looking to plan out 2024, I suggest you get this book prior to the end of 2023. Another book for me, book 14. Thank you guys as always for being a part of, some people call it a book club, even though I haven't started one, but there are people who watch these videos and they walk up to me and tell me, man, I got that book after you recommended it. So hopefully this is another book you'll consider, the 12-week year. And until next time, take care.